What's up everyone, Op Soldier here, and today we are going to be talking about emotions in fighting games. I'm probably not the best person that should be talking about this, but I am the best test subject for sure. Emotions in fighting games is one of those things that aren't really mentioned as much as they should be. A lot of the times we go over things like combo videos, strategies, stuff like that, but to be honest with you, having played Mortal Kombat for so long, emotions is probably the number one thing, especially with the mindset that you have going into fighting games. For example, when you're playing Mortal Kombat, having to deal with a grappler or a zoner and being able to get in and do what you need to do against that grappler or zoner is definitely an emotional struggle, right? Because it's very easy to get frustrated when you get hit by something or when you get throat looped, right? So me as a person, I struggle with emotions all the time. I'm going to be the first person to say, like, I struggle with emotions constantly, right? I'll show you a video right now where I'm playing against a Shang Tsung player and I'm getting zoned out, and I forget that you can false block the second spark that he does and punish with forward 2, which you can see here as I figure out later on in the lab. So already we can see here that emotions can get rid of options just because I was all riled up. So being emotional when it comes to dealing with a specific attack or a move that your opponent is doing is one of those things that over time I just feel like focusing on being more calm when it comes to playing fighting games and just being okay with losing is definitely something that will make you do a better job when it comes to dealing with those particular scenarios in fighting games, right? I had this problem for the longest time with jumping. Like I couldn't deal with jumping. I couldn't respect the jumping, because you know how like jump kicks in this game are really hard to deal with, and I couldn't block it and then reversal or do a down 3 or anything like that to focus on anti-airing consistently in MK11. And it's one of those things like once you are able to recognize something that you struggle with dealing with, and you just admit to yourself, okay, I struggle with that. I've lost to that before. I'll get better. Next time I go in, I'll focus on dealing with that particular move. Once you get to that level, I feel like your mindset changes with a particular matchup or a particular character. This takes a lot of effort, right? Obviously, the first time you're gonna lose to it, you might lose to it a million times until you finally get it down. But the trick is to keep pursuing and to understand it's an emotional game. It's not as simple as going into the practice mode and labbing it all the time. Sometimes there's a specific scenario you were put in and you've been put in it before and you're not used to dealing with it, or maybe you just experienced something and it made you feel bad, right? So being mentally sound is important in fighting games, and this probably excels even more once you start entering tournaments, right? The number one thing I feel like when it comes to fighting games is it's very easy to blame the game, right? It's very easy to blame the game, blame 50-50s, blame some sort of thing you didn't have control over. But I can say for a fact, especially with newer games like Mortal Kombat 11, Street Fighter 5, or at least from my experience, Mortal Kombat 11, Street Fighter 5, even Multiverses, really, there was counterplay in that game. I can say that these games are much more linear focused, so generally if you go in the lab you can find some sort of solution to deal with an issue that you might have had in the matchup, and you can lab it out, figure it out, and then get it in your muscle memory, and then you just have to enact it in game, right? There's not many overpowered things. Even the top 5 isn't that overwhelming in a lot of situations, at least with most of the players that you would be playing against. At your level, you'll probably be able to rise up and deal with those characters, even with the character you're playing. The characters are also very easy to play. They're much more simpler to understand compared to the previous fighting games, whether it be MK or Street Fighter. So being able to pick up a new character to deal with a difficult matchup will also help your mindset. Maybe you'll have more options. This happened to me with Jade. For the longest time, I could not win the Jade matchup with Katana because Jade would just zone me out. She had, purple glow. I had to make a lot of hard reads against Jade. Jade is generally like that. You have to make a lot of hard reads. But she does do small amount of damage at a time, so it's much easier for Katana to hit her once compared to Jade. Jade has to hit her multiple times, right? So it's kind of like death by 1,000 paper cuts. But when I finally picked up Frost, the matchup became easier because I had a character that could deal with the matchup very easily, right? So sometimes just switching characters will help ease your mindset. Other times, you want to plow through it. You want to muscle through and actually get used to the matchup. Maybe there's an impatience thing in your mind that is causing you to not be able to deal with the matchup as well. Maybe you have to be really patient against, a character like Jade or a character like Kotal Khan, right? Because generally, those characters are going to be more polarizing. They're going to be much harder to deal with compared to like an all-around character like Liu Kang. Liu Kang is very, not easy to beat, but he has all-around tools. So he's going to cause less emotions when you get in a matchup between him, because generally he's not going to have many characters that are going to completely just really struggle against him. But characters like Kotal Khan, Shang Tsung, Jade, those characters are going to they're going to really make you want to work for that particular matchup if your character can't deal with them very well. And in the process, you're going to have a lot of emotions going into that game because you don't have as many options as you would if you were playing another character. So sometimes playing a different character will allow you to change your mindset against a particular character. And these are things you want to keep in mind when you're playing, because once I finally figured that out, like character matchups and mindset are like two big things, and then also like risk taking, like how much your opponent is taking risk. Like sometimes you'll get upset because you're like, why would you take a risk there, right? But the thing is, again, you want to compartmentalize that. You want to be like, okay, he took that risk, I'll just have to counter it. He's a risk taker when it comes to doing something in a particular part of the field. Having that mindset to just kind of not let it bother you is so important, and it's hard to do. I'm still struggling with it every day. As you saw earlier, I couldn't even deal with that matchup as well. But I figured I would share that today. That's all I have for you guys. Have fun playing MK11 and fighting games.